Hello, I'm Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell. Just before Halloween, we had a taste of how this winter's going to be. Cold weather so far this season's been scarce, but we know how quickly things change. Winter in St. Louis is often quite a toss-up from week to week, sometimes day to day. Our Weather First team of meteorologists looks ahead to the cold season and just what Mother Nature has in store for us this year.
Hi, Weather First meteorologist Gary Frank here. As we look ahead to the winter, what the winter is going to be like. Now, for this exercise, let's call winter December, January, February. We know our feelings of cold weather and snow can extend beyond that. But as we look at last year, it was the 69th rise. So that doesn't jump out at you all that much. But the thing that really jumps out at you during that period of time is over 4.5 inches of snow, and it was the 12th warmest. Is a big difference from what we should be. And now let's look at where we should be this time of the year, right? This is what we should be looking at for the month of December. Our average, 36.5. Precipitation, 2.5 inches. And for this, once again, precipitation includes snow and melted snow, right? So we didn't get that much snow at all, but you look at that. January is our coldest month. Precipitation just over 2.5 inches, but that's our snowiest month as well, with 5.7 inches of expected snowfall. And then in February, 36.7. It starts to warm up a little bit more, and then we're expecting just over about 2.25 inches of liquid. And that means when you get 4.3 inches of snowfall, what does that mean? That means when we talk about those 10-to-1 ratios, 10 inches of snow equals 1 inch of rain. Sometimes those things are skewed just a little bit. And as we look ahead, our average snowfall is about 16.5 inches. We're so far away from that last year. So where are we going to be this year? That's what we're looking for, is how much rain, snow, and all the other stuff we're going to get. And that's what we're going to look ahead to some of those patterns and see if we can figure out how much of that we'll get over the coming months.
One of the biggest weather buzzwords that comes up each year is El Nino. That's something we have mentioned in our weather forecasts leading up to winter. But what exactly is an El Nino, and what does it do for our weather pattern here in St. Louis? I spoke with atmospheric scientists at the University of Missouri and Climate Central to help better explain. Even with that brief cold snap arriving before Halloween, the cold didn't last, and that is likely an indicator of how this winter plays out. Bernadette Woods-Plackey is with Climate Central.
We're still going to get winter. It's just changing as things warm around the globe. And the way we're seeing that play out in St. Louis is sort of shrinking our winter season.
She says over the last 50 years, the tendency for lengthy cold snaps is decreasing. We still get an Arctic blast from time to time, but the frigid air tends not to linger. After 3 years with a La Nina pattern in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, the water there is now warmer. El Nino has developed. It's getting stronger. The Pacific Ocean holds clues to the larger climate patterns that drive seasonal weather. Dr. Tony Lupo is an atmospheric scientist at Mizzou.
What we call classic El Ninos, that tends to have a very strong signal in the northern tier of states where things are well above normal temperature-wise and well below normal precipitation-wise. And then in the southern tier of states, you get the opposite pattern, a little bit below normal temperatures and wetter conditions.
Since 1950, there have been 11 strong or very strong El Nino patterns. In St. Louis, some have been wetter than average, some drier, some warmer than average, others not so much. In most of those 11 years, snowfall was a little lower than normal.
I-70 and Columbia and St. Louis are right in that middle ground between the two strong signals. So depending on the shape of the El Nino in the Pacific itself and the jet stream's ultimate pattern, or how it settles.
In addition to El Nino in the Pacific, sea surface temperatures around the world were warmer this summer than they've ever been. This could be a wild card in the winter ahead.
We're an ocean planet. And so when we see our weather patterns move around the world, they're really affected by what's happening in the ocean.
With all that unusually warm water, temperatures will be warmer than average in St. Louis. Cold air will depend on the polar vortex. When it delivers the cold air to our area, it probably won't last. That cold air and a favorable storm track are needed for us to get snow or ice. We only had about 5 inches of snow last winter. This year we'll likely see more. Overall, though, near or a bit below average precipitation.
I'm meteorologist Jim Castillo. We've covered some of the scientific ways that we can forecast the upcoming winter, but how about some of those old wives' tales? Can woolly worms really tell us if there's going to be a harsh winter? Meteorologist Tracy Henson spoke to an expert about the little fuzzy insect and its prognostication skills.
They certainly look fuzzy and warm.
A lot of insects that survive the winters are very good at producing antifreeze-like compounds. They've actually shown that the woolly worm can survive up to 90 degrees below zero.
So that fluffy exterior doesn't translate to warm, but the folklore around the crawler sometimes does. But before we get to that, meet Tad, senior entomologist at the Butterfly House.
Tarantulas here, these are all tarantulas.
He is definitely an expert in all things insect.
This is a new species. This is the largest species of black widow in the entire world.
Who better to ask about the science of the woolly worm?
I think the woolly bear reminds everyone of their childhood. Yes, everybody spends those late summer days and early fall days outside playing in the leaves and in the grass. That's where you see the woolly bear caterpillars.
We didn't find any, but we didn't look too long.
And it is in the same family.
If we did, fans of winter would hope for an all-black one.
The legend has it that the more black on the caterpillar, the worse the winter.
The more brown, the milder the winter. Now, if there was a scientific reason for that, Tad would know.
There's not too much science to this. Unfortunately, the caterpillars tend to get more brown the older they get. And so if you take a caterpillar that has a little bit of brown and you wait a few weeks and it molts again as it gets bigger, it might have even more brown.
And not once did you hear him call it a worm.
They're actually the caterpillar of a native moth species.
While this isn't an Isabella tiger moth, it's a beautiful blue morpho, but it's a good reminder that like all caterpillars, the woolly worm will eventually turn into a beautiful flying insect.
Tracy Henson, 5 on your side.
I'm meteorologist Tracy Henson. A local tree might have the answer for a winter weather prediction, but if woolly worms can't do it, do we have any hope in a persimmon seed?
Just plop it in your mouth and you can kind of suck the pulp off the seed. Kind of like a pawpaw a little bit in that way.
It's actually really good.
Kind of orange dreamsicle tasting, but it's not the fruit that has us sitting down with Missouri Botanical Garden Associate Scientist Emily Werchewski.
I study persimmon, specifically our native persimmon that grows here in Missouri.
She is an expert, but the legend surrounding the persimmon seed eludes her.
There's this great folklore about persimmons, which is that if you cut into one of these seeds, it will help you predict what the coming winter will be like.
It's not spelled out inside.
You look at the shape of it, and it can look either like a knife, a spoon, or a fork.
So what shape did you see in there? Fork, knife, spoon? Well, I know what I saw, and it links to something that we have to scoop a lot of, snow.
It is very clearly a spoon shape.
Emily cut into more, all spoons.
The spoon, you might, it's kind of obvious, is like a shovel. So they say if you see a spoon, it'll be a snowy winter. If you see a knife, it's supposed to represent cutting winds and cold. And if it's a fork, it's supposed to be kind of bountiful, so maybe a warmer winter that's more pleasant.
There could be a scientific link to seed shape and winter predictions, but for now, it is just a bit of fun. Tracy Henson, 5 on your side.
I'm meteorologist Anthony Slaughter. Despite what woolly worms, persimmon seeds, and El Nino may have to say about it, we're still going to have winter. It's definitely going to get colder at some point. But it's the addition of warmer air that complicates our weather forecasts and precipitation types this time of year. Now, this is especially something I pay attention to early in the morning. But how exactly are the different types of wintry precipitation formed? Let's start with the most obvious, rain. As temperatures are above freezing at the surface and thousands of feet above it, things get a little bit more complicated when the temperature at the surface is 32 degrees or less, when a warm wedge of air sandwiched between two freezing layers of air, that's when freezing rain develops and supercool droplets of rain fall to the surface, coating everything with ice. When the warm layer is considerably smaller, that liquid has the opportunity to refreeze and small ice pellets, known as sleet, fall to the ground. And then, of course, when the temperature column is below freezing at the surface and above the surface, that's how you get snow. Just a degree or two above the surface, a few thousand feet into the air, can make all the difference between whether it's snow, ice, or rain. Hopefully, this gives you a little insight as to why winter weather forecasting can be so difficult.
Now that we've pulled back that curtain a little bit on what's going on with our weather pattern heading into these winter months, well, here's the fun part. We're going to give you kind of specific forecast information from each of us. Mine basically looks like this. Don't think we're going to get a lot of extended cold weather, probably 2 or 3 really cold outbreaks, and that's about it. Most of the snow probably going to happen later in January and through the month of February, maybe even into March this year. Now, as far as the coldest temperature, let's go with about 2 degrees below zero. That's going to assume we have a little snow on the ground. And the total snowfall for the entire year, yeah, it's a crapshoot for sure, but about 12.5 inches. And remember, all those little snows add up. So you may get a ½ inch here, a ½ inch there. That makes for 1 full inch. And then you just keep building off of that. So we don't think it's going to be an overly brutal winter for St. Louis. And to be honest, probably not one of our snowiest either, but we'll take what we can get if you're a snow lover.
Hi, I'm Weather First meteorologist Jim Castillo, and the entire team has been talking about El Nino and a strong El Nino this winter coming up. So how much of this am I expecting? So this is what we're kind of looking at here. The entire team will give their outlook, and of course, some of us are hoping for a lot of snow, others not so much, but what we're really zooming in on are these ocean temperatures that are above average. Whether you look down where El Nino is forming, and a strong El Nino, are pretty much anywhere around the entire globe, those ocean temperatures are warmer. So then you get more evaporation, you get more of that moisture, and now we just need Arctic outbreaks, but the winter does look a little milder than what we're used to, and we kind of had that last year, so limited Arctic outbreaks. But if you get an Arctic outbreak and you get the moisture at the exact same timing on that, you could get some good ice and some good snow in there. But I'm expecting some below average snowfall, and we'll get to that total coming up here in a second, and below average ice, but so milder than average. But we could still see some Arctic outbreaks, and that could bring those temperatures down to 0, is what I'm thinking, is our coldest it will get to. And that total snowfall of about 11 inches, which is a little bit more than last year. Last year we had about 5 inches. All right, that is my prediction for this upcoming winter 2023-2024.
Hey there, meteorologist Anthony Slaughter here with my prediction for the upcoming winter season. Now, I do think we're going to have a mild winter, all because of the pattern that we're in, the El Nino pattern, and that means we'll probably have more issues when it comes to freezing rain and sleet as opposed to snow this year. I just don't think we're going to have a lot of snow. In fact, last year we just got over 5 inches of snowfall for the entire season, and I think we're going to probably have less than that this year. Right at 5 is what I'm forecasting. And then the coldest temperature, I think somewhere around -2. Last year we were close to -6. So this year I do think, again, the mild air will stick around through most of the season with just a few Arctic outbreaks.
If climate prediction was easy, we would all have the answer to what winter would be like. But here's what I am feeling like this winter will. If climate prediction was easy, we would all have the answer to what winter holds for us. Here's what I'm thinking. I think we're going to have week-long cold snaps. You know, that's pretty typical for us, followed by plenty of warmth in there. So sort of like Christmas of 2019, when right before that, about a couple weeks before, we were cold and snowy. And then the day after Christmas was 75 degrees. I think we're going to have something like that this winter. I do think we're going to have at least one good storm. At least I'm hopeful we're going to have one good storm. I think our coldest temperature is going to be about -8, and I'm hoping total snowfall comes in at 12. Okay, let's be serious. You all know I'm hoping our total snowfall is more like 24 inches, but we'll see. I think 12 is a reasonable guess.
All right, so we've mentioned El Nino. You understand what it means now a little bit more, hopefully, and that's what we're here for. But as we look ahead to what that means for our snow production or just our winter weather in general, are you going to be wearing coats like this, or are you going to be dressed in shorts the entire year? I'm probably going to be dressed in shorts the entire year because that's what I do anyway, but there will be periods of cold. It's just tough when we see these sea surface temperatures that are so much warmer than normal from where storms typically originate and go up into Alaska and come down into our area and, of course, interact with the Gulf moisture. So what does that mean for us? Does that mean we're going to get a lot of snow? And I think the key is it probably doesn't. You know, there's a couple of things that I look at when it comes to, the entire snowfall forecast. First and foremost, the drought is really hard to escape. When we don't have any rain whatsoever for a while and we're so dry as we've been, then it's hard to escape that, especially as we head into a period of time where temperatures are cooler. Even if they're warmer than average, they're cooler overall, so they're not carrying as much moisture because you see that when it's 80, 90, 100, we have a lot of that heat capability. There's more moisture in the air when it's more humid in the summertime, as we're very familiar with. The drought's really hard to escape. I just don't see that it's going to be cold enough when it matters, meaning, sure, we can get these little fringe times where, even as we head into, the holiday weekends and things like that, where it's 35, 36, we talked about how difficult it is. When is the last time we had a lot of moisture and it was also 26 degrees? It doesn't happen a lot. And I think as we're hard to escape that drought, that's going to be something that we come into play. So maybe even a stronger storm or two, not only on the winter side, but maybe even on the severe storm side, as warm as it's been. And that doesn't mean to say that it's warmer than normal, but late November into December, there is a period of time where you have that active severe weather time in the south. So it's actually something to monitor for us. We know that's not out of the question. It's happened the last couple of years. So something to think about. Overall, though, I still think overall our snowfall totals are going to be less than impressive. I still think we'll get to 3 below as a coldest temperature, right? So you do need these kind of jackets. We've got to stay warm, but I think overall, our total snowfall is 6.7. I'm just not really sold on a lot of snow. I think we may catch up in the rain department. We may see some of these fringe areas where you'll have, the possibility of some ice. But I'm just really not sold on the whole snowfall thing. Don't forget, I want to give Anthony Slaughter, meteorologist Anthony Slaughter, his props. He did win last year's snowfall total because he had, a lower number. We didn't get that much, but we did tie on the coldest temperature. So we'll at least split part of that. But got to give Anthony his due here. I'm thinking that, we're just not going to get all that much snow. So as a result, I'm already prepared. Don't need these jackets. We're just going to switch it all. We're going to switch it all to shorts. And, I'm going to say we can just go in here. You'll need the stocking cap once in a while. That's all good. I'll go with the regular hat. We're in good shape there. And I wouldn't even be surprised, just like last year where it warms up enough, you got to throw the visor on. The visor can come out in December and January too. It's not out of the question, guys. So I just don't think there's going to be a lot of snow. And that's my prediction for the year. I'm hoping I'm wrong because I think overall it'll be better for us next year. But, until we get out of the drought, it's going to be tough sledding, literally and figuratively.